23% pass rush win rate this past season, a 10% run stop rate this past season. That's James Pearce Jr. out of Tennessee. So let's get right into it. So today we're going to be breaking down James Pearce Jr. just like the other breakdown videos. However, the difference today is it's supposed to be a very reduced video. So my goal going forward is to get as many of these videos out as possible, as many of these breakdowns out as possible, so you guys can get a sense of where I'm grading these players. So I'm not cutting back on the film that I'm watching. I still have the same breakdown and grade process. The difference is the production of the videos I'm really trying to make faster, because I think that might be the only way to get more videos out like this. Instead of going 20 plus minutes with the amount of clips and breakdowns I do within those videos, it just takes so much time that I think it's really going to limit the amount of videos I actually can put out, which in turn also limits the amount of players that I can get to and do breakdowns on. So to speed up that process starting today, I'm aiming for under 10 minutes. If you guys like the 20 plus minute more, we can go back to that format. But depending on how today's reception is, that may allow me to get more of these videos out, what I think ultimately could be the best case for us going forward. May end up dropping like the full scouting reports that I do on like doseofdn.com or something at some point, just to give you guys my full breakdown, all of my thoughts, because some of those are going to be cut within these videos. But I think that's just the best path. We'll see how it goes. At the end, you'll see the final grade. That being said, though, James Pearce Jr., the 21-year-old out of Tennessee that's been incredibly productive, as I mentioned in the open, that had 13 sacks in 2023 and 8 sacks this past season. When I look at James Pearce Jr., a stand-up outside linebacker at Tennessee that, in terms of his frame, unfortunately feels like it may be a little bit filled out within the lower body. I don't know how much he's actually going to be able to add to that in terms of some of the upside in the ceiling for tons of role flexibility or being a pure 4-3 defensive end, base end. However, in a stand-up role where he can play more as your outside linebacker that showcases the athleticism, move in space, the vision for coverage, and also some of the run game athleticism as well for a ton of range, in that role, I get the sense that James Pearce Jr. is very close to hitting his ceiling or getting to the next level in a lot of areas that need polish within his game. I think there's a lot of areas that need to be improved that he can quickly tap into at the next level with really good coaching. I think he can get there a lot faster, and it makes me more confident that it's a little bit less risky at the next level of this being a complete bust of a pick. The flip side is, though, I don't know that I see the kind of ceiling, if we just threw a guy like Shamar Stewart, for example, put these guys side by side, that a guy like that could actually have. What he could potentially become, I think, is at another level than a guy like James Pearce Jr. It doesn't necessarily mean that he won't be the better player in the NFL, because if Shamar Stewart doesn't get to that super elevated level, then of course James Pearce Jr. could be the better player at the next level. But I think a lot of things can translate very quickly, and I think the areas that need improvement to allow him to translate and open up a multitude of ways to win, I think he's capable of getting there much, much faster, with just an overall cap in terms of like how much you can actually get out of James Pearce Jr. That's kind of my quick assessment. But in terms of some of the grade breakdowns, first off, you get to the first step explosion. I think he has a very good first step get off. I think sometimes it looks great, other times it just looks good. I don't love how it feels like sometimes he gets upright off the line of scrimmage, and I don't always feel the depth, effectiveness, or the true explosion off the ball. He absolutely can cover depth. I think the second stride is where it stands out, but he can take off within his first few steps off the ball and be incredibly impactful. The big thing there is he's pretty reactive off the ball, but in terms of like the timing and anticipation, that I didn't notice as much as some of the other top edge rushers at times for his ability to anticipate. We got flashes of it like against Alabama, and when he gets off like that, it is a problem, but it's not as consistent as others. If anything, you'd see him jump off sides. Of course, we saw that within his combine scores that he tested in with, but then you also see it as a closer when he's in space. You see that closing speed and some of the range that he brings to the table to finish out in space as well. So for me, first step explosion is very good as of now. Now, in terms of the play strength, it's a little bit weird for me. I gave him slightly above average. My biggest concern is I don't know how much more you could actually tap into here. Positive for him is he does transition speed to power pretty well to open up some bull rush opportunities and consistent leverage. I think sometimes he plays a little bit too upright, especially as the play rolls along, to consistently maintain leverage or reset leverage as the play goes on to go from kind of being stalled to creating speed to power. I don't think that transition shows up very much at all. And then also just pure force at the point of attack doesn't really feel overwhelming as a pass rusher or as a run defender. I think you'll see some plus core strength when his ability to shed when he's working on tight ends one-on-one. And what really helps him here is the quick positioning that he has as a run defender, specifically his entry points. You'll see this as a slant rusher where he gets in the chest of offensive guard and actually hold his own at the point of attack, and if anything, create knockback at the point of attack. What he does well is he keeps his feet active through contact. He runs his feet through contact. It just overall for me, the upper body power that he brings to the table, I think is just adequate at this time. You'll see some of that force when he's working, say, outside the box on receivers or tight ends. You'll see some of the knockback punch a little bit, but it doesn't show as much against offensive tackles. And I just think overall, I don't know how much you can actually tap into within the frame there for me. Now, over to the pass rush ability, this is where I have a very weird score. I gave him a good grade, but I think this quickly could become great. And that's the thing that could separate him, because as of this moment, I think he's a good pass rusher, and he's very consistent in terms of the ways that he wins. And the reason I think this will translate at least a portion of this is because I think he's a very instinctual and smart pass rusher. I think he plays with fantastic angles. He utilizes his athleticism to his benefit. He plays with great body control in my estimation, as well as very good agility, and that allows him to open up a change of pace. You tie that with the first step speed around the edge, the second gear that he can clock into.
I think here's a great example. He maintains footing through contact here, and you're going to see some of the hips due to the contact where he's able to roll through, and then just some of that short area footwork to just keep running through contact.
And his ability to kind of work the pace of offensive tackle sets everything up. He does a great job of not running himself over and outside of the pocket. He really does a nice job trying to work back to the ball, work back to the quarterback, and he sets it up with the pace through his pass rush right from the get off, right from the first step that he takes. And to me, he ties it along with his entire pass rush plan, which opens so much consistency as a pass rusher. I think he's a very smart and adaptive pass rusher in that sense. He's very shifty at the top of the rush. It allows him to open and find entry angles as a pass rusher.
To me, this is why the wider his alignment, maybe the better he's off, because he can set up offensive tackles like this and then play into the strength more so than just having to overwhelm guys with length and true power. Because out here when he's wider, you can see the in and out move that allows the press opportunity. Offensive lineman is off balance. He's on balance through contact, and that sets up the entire rush.
And he also does show that ability to not only maintain speed around the edge, but not get pushed out of the back of the pocket. And because that, he gets a lot of the top rush wins because of the angles that he takes, because he can create some half-man opportunities, and because he can change pace and get offensive linemen just a little bit off balance to create opportunities for himself. This is where I get flashes of a Trey Hendrickson, the way that he constantly wins. He's not the longest or most athletic offensive lineman, but what he does well is he plays the top of the rush at a very high level. And I think James Pearce Jr. has some similarities to that just in terms of the way he wins. The short area quickness, of course, plays into this as well. The quick hips that transition to kind of get himself centered for bull rush opportunities. It's just sudden. It's pretty dynamic as a mover, and he's got that short area quickness as well as that second burst that he can get to around the edge. Now, there's plenty of knocks that I have here, inside win specifically. I think that there's too much false movement as a pass rusher right now. There's a lot of doing nothing at times as a pass rusher in terms of his setup. I don't really think he has a great plan. That shows up as a slant and stunt rusher specifically. Doesn't always feel like he has a great plan. I don't think he really strings together many moves as of now. It's kind of the initial go-to, and then there's not much off of that, which makes him struggle to disengage consistently. Also see that offensive tackles can kind of play him to the outside. They can kind of try to force him back inside and test him to win inside, because while he covers a lot of depth in terms of the crossover moves and the inside side steps, the problem is I feel like it's not super low. He also doesn't show a ton of dip in those spots either, though there is some slither, and we'll see that with the body control, his ability to kind of split gaps when he gets moved all around. He doesn't show, to me, some of the shake in terms of playing a little bit low in terms of those side steps, transition ability that you would look for him to constantly open up that. But I feel like it can get there. He just needs a more concise plan. He needs to have less false movement. It has to be more of a go-to approach, because right now it's very instinctive, but I feel like if he has more of a go-to, this is what I'm going to get to as a pass rusher, it would open up more success on the interior, because I believe he has the skill set to win on the inside way more than he does right now. Speed to power, while he opens up entries there and he does run his feet through contact because of the way that he can create placement, because of the length that he can create at the point of attack, and the way that he maximizes his length, kind of the little things. It's not pressing aggressively enough to get an offensive tackle to bite one direction. It's also the fact that, again, he doesn't reset speed to power incredibly well. And I don't think he's overwhelmingly powerful either in terms of lower body, in terms of his natural leg drive. So I think he's a good pass rusher, but quickly can become great as a pass rusher. In terms of the shed ability, again, another weird spot for me, because I think this is more average right now, but I do think there's a lot of good things that it does. And again, it comes back to the entry and the quickness which he enters. He gets his feet on the ground quickly. He centers himself very quickly. He gets his hands locked in very quickly, which allows him to create real punch, hip drive through contact. You'll see him kind of roll his hips actively through contact. He even flashes some real gap integrity here. I think he plays with nice vision as well. There's some discipline as a run defender. You'll see this when he takes on pullers. He does a nice job of really filling out a gap, even if it's maybe not the best plan in terms of he'll overset at times or will kind of run himself out of plays. He ultimately does play through a gap, and he has pretty good vision over top to kind of find where the ball carrier is. Consistency in terms of leverage to work over seal blocks. You'd see him get hinge block multiple times last season, kind of get sealed and taken out of the play completely. Edge set angle on entry at the point of attack against offensive tackles specifically. You'll see double teams against tight ends can kind of push him off the ball. I think this is where you see some of the lack of just true sink, where he plays like a little bit with a wide base, but he doesn't have that easy sink. And again, kind of the stout base to just hold his ground at the point of attack. So taking on two guys at once, that's been a problem. I think that's going to continue to be a problem at the next level. I think he misses too many tackles. When you talk about stack and finish, he just misses too many tackles. Too often it feels like he's just falling on the ground. He's not staying on his feet. Doesn't always showcase, I think, the strength to kind of play through contact, or even just some of the ability to break down, settle down, actually make tackles and finish in the backfield.
You can appreciate, though, the way he tries to maximize his length, really create power through the ground, create force through the ground, and that allows him to reset his base like this so he can set an edge against the tight
His
end.
most special trait maybe is body control. Like he had a play where he won against Alabama, controlled himself in the backfield to stop and start with Jalen Milroe to mirror him in the backfield, maintain his footing while also collapsing the top of the rush, and then still make a stop on the quarterback because of that burst and some of the length that he can bring to the table, where he really maximizes that well. But the problem is, as stack and shed finisher, he doesn't make enough tackles. He misses too many tackles. Too often it feels like he's just plopping on the ground. He's not breaking himself down, and I don't think he gets himself as low as you would consistently need it. And then finally, in terms of the hands, again, another weird spot for me here because I think he has above average. I think he has slightly above to above average hand usage. I actually like a lot of things that he does with his hands. I just don't think his hands are very violent. I don't think they're super powerful. They don't disengage as often as you would like to see. You'll see the club move. He just gets latched. There's times where he doesn't feel like he actually has a plan to get off of a block once he gets latched by offensive tackles with these like just monster arms, where he doesn't actually have a plan to get off of those, and it'll just stall out a rep. Even if it feels like he has a half man opportunity, it kind of just stalls out against offensive tackles. And that's where I think you see some of the hit and miss plan, even against tight ends, when he can't just overwhelm tight ends one-on-one either. And we saw that against Alabama, for example. I do like a lot of things with his hands because they're sudden hands, they're fast hands at the point of attack. He's got a quick punch that he get to, which allows him to use his hips and his core strength. And again, he shifts his hips into contact very quickly, good length into passing lanes. So I didn't feel like he got his hands on the ball very often. That really can help against the quarterback, just kind of disrupting the pass specifically. He also does a lot of good things in terms of timing, like the sidestep and club timing. I just don't always feel like the footwork always connects to that, to being successful as you would like to see, right? Like the skip club, it doesn't always feel like that footwork is as crafty. It doesn't always feel like it's tied together as well. You'll see him cover depth, but it doesn't feel like there's as much shake there. It doesn't feel like there's much suddenness. Everything kind of feels like it's working at one pace, which kind of pulls back to as a pass rusher as well. But I do like the length here. I like the suddenness within his hands. I like the two-handed swipe move that he tries to get to. There's some variety to it. I just don't think he strings really anything together right now, and he doesn't finish half-man opportunities, and too often he gets latched and he can't disengage. So I think there's, again, some limitations there, really potentially at the next level in terms of timing of the speed. I just don't think it's always as crafty or as sudden as you would like it to see, or having some of that shake that you would like to see. So overall, James Pearce to me is a very, very intriguing prospect. Obviously, there's off the field stuff. I'm not going to go into any of that because I don't know any of that. So I'm just judging what I can see as a player. That's how I've always done it. That may affect some things. It may not. We'll see. But overall, like I said, I think he's closer to hitting his ceiling. He's got a much better chance of hitting his ceiling at the next level. I don't think he has the highest ceiling for an edge rusher in this year's class by any stretch beyond Abdul Carter. I think there's a lot of quick fix elements with a limited ceiling. Overall, I ended up giving James Pearce Jr. a 6.38, and you can see where that throws him in here. His body control, his agility. I think he's a very smart player, which is really kind of the leading factor for me here, with really strong critical factors. They're not elite to me in any category. The closest thing there would be first step, but I think play strength is okay. I think pass rush is good right now. But I think in terms of positional factors, the lowest grade is average. He's actually very well rounded in a lot of areas. I think he's close to even getting to another level in a lot of those spots. And he has a lot of flexibility within just the skill set that he does offer. So ultimately here, I think James Pearce Jr. doesn't necessarily separate himself from the next group. I don't feel that way with James Pearce, and I think it's really going to be whatever a team's looking for stylistically. But overall, I think there's a lot of things that will translate. It's just how high of a ceiling. Can he become a double-digit sack guy? I think that's a real question at the next level. But if you have a proven edge rusher and he has a stand-up outside linebacker spot on your team, I think there's value for him because he's smart. He'll play in coverage. He can defend the run. He plays with good vision, good motor. He's very rangy in space. It's just there's a lot of little things that need polished up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.